Hey y'all, what's up? Jared Hoffman here with another episode edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Appreciate everyone who is joining me, who will be joining me, or who's going to watch back later. I appreciate everyone and their viewership. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. Subscribe to become a level 1 or 2 member to get all the exclusive content from the HBCU Sports team. Follow us on all of our social platforms. Search up HBCU Sports on all of them. I guarantee it'll pop up. And you can always go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news in sports. Please go to hbcusports/donate. This operation costs money and we need it. So you guys will be a big part of that, and we would appreciate any contributions you guys could give, anything from $1 to $1,000,000. We would appreciate it. If you could be the Miss Kinsey Scott of this operation, that would be very appreciated. All right, let's get into it. It is championship season, and we got 2 championship games on tap this weekend. And I just realized I did not this is so unprofessional. I didn't even bring up my slides. Hold on a second. Lord have mercy. Look at me. My bad, y'all. Hold on. I gotta pull it up. This is what happens when you're a one-man operation doing the show. But while I'm waiting to pull this up, we are going to first talk about the CIAA championship game, which will be between the Johnson C. Smith Golden Bulls and the Virginia Union Panthers. And this is a historic matchup. Here we go. I got them up. See, always late, but better late than never. But yeah, we got Johnson C. Smith going up against Virginia Union. Johnson C. Smith clinched its spot in the CIAA championship game last weekend with a win over Livingstone, scored a touchdown in the final minutes of the game to clinch their spot in this one. And this is their first CIAA championship game since 1972. For those who may remember, last year, Johnson C. Smith had a chance to get into the CIAA championship game with a win in any of its final 2 games. They were unfortunately shut out in the penultimate game against Fayetteville State, and then in the last week of the season against Livingstone, the aforementioned Livingstone, they lost again, and Virginia State beat Virginia Union in the final week of the season. So the championship game ended up being Virginia Union versus Virginia State. This time around, Johnson C. Smith finishes the job, beat Fayetteville State in its penultimate game of the season to overtake Fayetteville State, who simply needed a win to get into the championship game. And then in the final week, Johnson C. Smith beats Livingstone. And for the first time in 53 years, they are in the CIAA championship game. They're going up against Virginia Union, who is looking to complete the three-peat. Virginia Union finished the regular season with a 9-1 overall record. Their only loss being against Edward Waters, perfect in CIAA play, and not much trouble remaining unbeaten in CIAA play. Almost pretty much all of their conference games were 2-score games. And yeah, Virginia Union looking to become the first team to win championship in 3 consecutive years since Hampton from 92 to 94. Bowie, I keep bringing this up on the podcast. It might be sour grapes, I don't know. But Bowie had a chance to win championships in 3 consecutive years, but unfortunately 2020 season was canceled due to COVID. So they have a three-peat, but they do not have a championship in 3. They haven't won a championship in 3 consecutive years. Virginia Union has a chance to do it for the second time in school history. They actually did it from 1981 to 1983. So as far as this matchup goes, I think it's pretty plain and simple. It'll be who does better between Johnson C. Smith's run defense and Virginia Union's pass defense. You know, Virginia Union obviously starring Curtis Allen, who I'm pretty sure it's a lock for the CIAA Player of the Year. I don't think there should be any kind of conversation about who it is other than him. All due respect to Kelvin Durham, who has had a great season, but it's Curtis Allen. It shouldn't be much of a debate whatsoever. 2,000 yards on the season surpassed Jada Byers' school record for rushing yards in a single season, and I believe overtook Jada Byers for the CIAA record as well. I'm not sure what the record was before both of those two gentlemen had 2,000. I don't think there was a CIAA rusher that had 2,000 yards in the season. Don't quote me on that, because I'm not sure if Richard Huntley back in the day did it. But yeah, so Curtis Allen, the school for sure the school record holder for rushing yards in a single season. Had, I believe, 2,078. Needed 50 to surpass 2,000, and 50 something to surpass 2,000 against Virginia State, and he got that and then some. But the last time Curtis Allen played against Johnson C. Smith. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention these two teams have played each other already. Virginia Union beat them, got the win 28-10. Curtis Allen only had a season low 108 rushing yards, but he scored 4 touchdowns. So he found a way to make an impact on the game. And yeah, he's going to be a big part of the Johnson C. Smith defensive game plan. He scored all of the touchdowns Virginia Union had in that game. So he will be a big part of Virginia Union, Johnson C. Smith defensive game plan. And yeah, can they contain Curtis Allen? That's going to be the question. Every single game this season, Curtis Allen has had 100 rushing yards and a touchdown. Every single game, all but one, he scored multiple touchdowns. So that lets you know the kind of impact he can have on a game. And that's going to be a big part of Johnson C. Smith's game plan going into this one. Meanwhile, Kelvin Durham did not have the best game the last time when these two teams played earlier this season. Completed 20 of 35 passes, 193 yards, no touchdowns, but an interception. But I think the biggest difference in this game is that the receiving core has gotten much better since that game. You know, DeAndre Proctor and Brian Lane are a big part of this offense, and also they've added the run game to which was not there in the beginning of the season. Bobby Smith has had 100 rushing yards in each of the last 3 games. I believe had a season high 163 in their final game of the regular season. So, but I think the passing game is going to be the key in how they win this game. Of course, Bobby Smith is going to need to make an impact. Yeah, 164 against Livingstone. That's what it was. Okay, so yeah, but I think the passing game is going to be the key for Johnson C. Smith. And can they have that balance on offense? If they can have Bobby Smith having maybe 100, maybe at least 80 yards rushing, but and 4 yards a carry. If he can give them that, then Johnson C. Smith is going to be tough to beat, especially if that pass game is flowing the way it is. You know, so I think it all comes down to which defense performs better. You know, so I came into the season saying that Johnson C. Smith was going to get over the hump, but after what I've seen of Johnson C. Smith throughout the season and what I've seen from Virginia Union throughout the season, I'm a little bit more confident in Virginia Union getting it done. You know, they've been consistent all throughout the season. They've had their lapses. You know, the Edward Waters game, as controversial as that game was, it wasn't their best performance defensively. And they can, especially with a pass offense like this, they cannot play like they did against Edward Waters if they want to win this game. They have to be much sharper on defense if they want a chance to win this game and complete the three-peat. You know, so I hate to go against my preseason pick, but I might have to go with Virginia Union in this one. They have been much more consistent to me than Johnson C. Smith has throughout the season. You know, Kelvin Durham has had times during the season where he's put the ball in harm's way. And we're going to talk about the SIAC championship game and how and 2 quarterbacks that do the same thing. You know, so he has to be sharp. He cannot take unnecessary risk. He has to take the plays that are there, because Virginia Union, I guarantee they're going to be much sharper defensively in this game than they have been in the regular season in the secondary. Virginia Union has been prone to give up big plays in the passing game, but I guarantee Dr. Alvin Parker is going to have that defense ready. He is going to make sure that Brian Lane and DeAndre Proctor do not beat us. They are not going to beat us downfield. They cannot beat us downfield. Otherwise, they're going to run up the score on us. That should be the message to the secondary from Dr. Alvin Parker. You know, but I think that I'm much more confident in Virginia Union winning this game, even though I picked Johnson C. Smith in the preseason. But And this is the first, by the way, this is the first championship game in Durham after leaving Salem, Virginia. So much closer to home for Johnson C. Smith, but I might have to go with Virginia Union in this one. I think they are thinking bigger than a three-peat, a CIAA championship three-peat. They are thinking national championship. Johnson C. Smith has not been here in 50 plus years. So we have to see how they handle the moment. You know, I don't think that the moment is going to be too big for them. I don't expect the moment to be too big for them. You know, I think they will handle it fairly well. But can they handle it better than a Virginia Union who's been here 2 times over and just had its best playoff run, Division II playoff run in school history? So shout out to Lawrence in the chat. He said he has Union getting the second seed. Johnson C. Smith will get the third seed. Interesting you say that, because the recent regional rankings, and let me close this so I can bring this up real quick. The recent regional rankings, and so for those who don't know how the regional rankings work, so every region, Lord have mercy, the Division II rankings are breaking down into regions. So there's Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, and Region 4. The CIAA is in Region 1 with conferences like the Gulf South Conference, and I don't know any other conference. I'm not gonna lie. No, it's the Mountain East Conference. They're in Region 1 with the Mountain East Conference with I don't know any other conferences. I only know about HBCUs. I'm sorry, but the Region 2 is the SIAC, and they have the Gulf South in their region. CIAA used to be in Super Region 2 for a while, but then they moved back to Region 1. But anyway, that rambling out the way, this is the most recent regional rankings for Super Region 1, which is where the CIAA is. So Virginia Union currently, thank you, Lawrence, the PSAC, the NBC, NE10, and CIAA. Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference, the Mountain East Conference, and the Northeast 10 Conference, also in the region with the CIAA. Right now, Virginia Union is 2, Johnson C. Smith is 3, and Fayetteville State is 8. If Johnson C. Smith loses this game, I'm not sure about their ability to be able to keep that three seed. I'm just not sure. It depends on how the other teams' games shake out, because most of these conferences don't have championship games, so all of these teams are more than likely playing in the final week of the season. It just depends on what happens in the final week of the season with these other teams. If Johnson C. Smith will be able to keep that 3 seed, or if they maybe get bumped down to, at worst, having to go on the road for his first playoff game. But 2 CIAA teams getting a home game in the Division II playoffs, that would be huge. And not to mention Fayetteville State is hanging on by a thread in the conversation for a playoff spot. There right now, I believe they would be on the outside looking in, because I think each region takes 7 with the first seed getting the first round bye. But yeah, we'll see how it plays out this weekend. Hopefully Fayetteville State can benefit from a couple of teams above them taking a loss in the final week of the season, but we'll just have to wait and see. All right, we talked about the CIAA championship game. Now let's get into the SIAC championship game between Albany State and Benedict. Benedict got into the CIAA championship game in the final week of the season, had to work extremely hard to get it, had to go 2 overtimes with Savannah State and get a Tristan Morgan touchdown on the first play of the second overtime, the first play of their possession in the second overtime, to escape with the win, surpassed Kentucky State for that SIAC championship berth. Kentucky State we'll talk about in a second. But yeah, this is another matchup that is a rematch, and this is a very recent rematch. The Albany State and Benedict played each other about 2 weeks ago, and Albany State got it decisively, 31-3. This was Isaiah Knowles' return game after missing 3 games due to an ankle injury. Had 294 on 22 or 37 passing, 3 touchdowns. Had 3 different threw a touchdown pass to 3 different receivers: Corey Patty, Jamil Williams, and Jamarian Davis. Javian Jackson led him in receiving with 73 yards on 6 receptions. Honestly, this Albany State offense is too balanced for me to say that Benedict could potentially win this game. Benedict's defense is remarkable. They have a very good defense, but Albany State tore them to shreds when they played them the last time. And they have been prone to give up big plays. The Benedict defense has. Add that to the fact that this offense is very inconsistent. You know, in the game against Albany State 2 weeks ago, Darius Ocean was 10 of 28 passing, 158, only one, and threw an interception with no touchdowns. And they only had 59 rushing yards on 21 attempts in that game. So not only the fact that your defense has been prone to give up big plays, but your offense is too inconsistent. And we don't know what we're going to get when you go up against them when it matters the most. Isaiah Knowles has had those moments where he's put the ball in harm's way, don't get me wrong. But more often than not, his production has outweighed his mistakes. And I feel like that's going to be a similar situation in this one. I need to see consistency from Benedict on offense. Can they find a game plan that works and stick to it? That's going to be the question. What kind of adjustments are going to be made to stifle this Albany State offense? Because even if you stop the passing game, they have Tyant Weish and Algernon Thomas. 2 guys who were spectacular when Isaiah Knowles was out. Had 2 games where they each rushed for over 100 yards. So even if you do hold Isaiah Knowles in check, you still got Algernon Thomas and Tyant Weish to deal with. But also, I think one thing that will work in Benedict's favor is special teams. What's the receiver's name? Jackson Williams. Jackson Williams will be a key player for Benedict in this game. If he can get loose on a return or 2 and shorten the field for Benedict, maybe even house one, that will be huge for Benedict and their confidence in this game. And it'll take a lot of the pressure off of the Benedict offense. It's a difference between having to go 80 yards downfield, 70 yards downfield, than it is to go 40, 50 yards downfield. Especially when you know that kickers are not the most reliable at this level. So Jackson Williams will be a key player to watch for Benedict, and his level of production will be a big part of if Benedict is able to pull off the upset. You know, Albany State all season has not lost to a Division II program. Their only loss this season was against Florida A&M. So, and in that game, Albany State had some special teams mistakes. They were up 14-3 in that game against Florida A&M. They really had a great chance to win it, but it was special teams mistakes. Benedict is one of the better special teams units in the SIAC. So there is a path for Benedict to win this game. The problem is the offense too much of an outlier for Benedict to have any chance of winning this game? Are they too dominant? Can Benedict keep up? That is going to be the question. And I'm not sure if Benedict's defense can really keep up with this Albany State offense, especially since Isaiah Knowles has had 2 or 3 games to get himself back in the rhythm of playing, and was in a high intensity game against Savannah State. It wasn't the prettiest game from him, but it was effective in getting him that high intensity game experience. You know what I mean? Getting the game against Benedict and Fort Valley State that weren't very close. Having that game against Savannah State was key, because playing in a high intensity environment, that's going to be huge for them in this game. Now, is this going to be a close game? I don't know. I expected the first one to be close, and it wasn't. Is Benedict having experienced that loss, which was, by the way, their only loss of the season? Was that for Benedict a wake-up call, or was that just a sign of what else is to come on Saturday? We'll have to wait and see. I'm much more confident in putting my money on Albany State than I am Benedict, to be quite honest with you. I hope that Benedict proves me wrong. It would be a great story for them. Benedict is going for its third SIAC championship in the past 4 seasons, while Albany State is going for its first since 2021. These are 3 of the last 4 SIAC champions in this game. The only other one was last year. Miles won it. Other than that, since the pandemic, these 2 teams represent 3 of your last 4 SIAC champions. So, yeah, one of these teams has a chance to really stamp itself as a powerhouse program within the SIAC, because I don't see either of these teams going anywhere after this year. Both of these teams will be in the conversation for being in this game once again this year. Lawrence again chiming in, says Benedict has to win if they want the home playoff game. The loss would likely put them on the road. Absolutely. I feel like both of these teams are in the playoffs no matter what. All 4 of these teams in the championship game are in the playoffs no matter what. And speaking of these teams being in the playoffs, let's once again go back to our regional rankings and look at Super Region 2 and how that is laying out at the moment. Just wait for it. And here we go. Boom. All right. So as it stands right now, Albany State is number 2 behind West Florida. And as Lawrence mentioned, Benedict 4th behind Newberry and just ahead of Wingate. And then at number 7, you see the team that I'm about to talk about in a second, Kentucky State, who is 7th, holding on to that last playoff spot. And it's interesting, the team that they are above, because that is the topic of conversation that we're about to have. But just to talk about the regional rankings right now, it's more than likely that Albany State will host a playoff game no matter what. I feel like Benedict needs this win in order to host a playoff game, because unfortunately down the stretch of the season, Edward Waters tailed off, so that doesn't help their resume much. And then every other win other than Fayetteville State, that Fayetteville State was a crucial win for Benedict, and is a big reason why they are 4th as of right now, because that's the only other winning team that they played. I don't think Allen finished with a winning record. So when you talk about their strength of schedule, it doesn't look good for them. And it would have been a lot better had Edward Waters actually kept on the track that they were on at the beginning of the season. But unfortunately, they fell off. So Benedict's only strong argument for hosting a playoff game, if they lose this game, is that it's Fayetteville State, and that's not a strong enough argument. So to Lawrence's point, they are more than likely going to have to go on the road if they lose this game. Now, if they win the game, there's going to be a conversation about who are the 3 teams that are hosting the first round playoff game, because it's pretty stacked at the top. And if Albany State wins the game and West Florida loses its final game of the season, of the regular season, who does Albany State have an argument to be the number one team in the region, or do they kind of snub us and still give the number one seed to West Florida? So that's it's some fascinating stuff as we inch toward the Division II playoffs. All right, now for our last topic, we have, is Kentucky State ducking the smoke? This is a very, very weird story. So as it goes, Kentucky State was scheduled to play against, and by the way, for those who didn't see the regional rankings, Delta State was 8th in those regional rankings. So just on the outside looking in of the playoff line, and Kentucky State is holding on to that last playoff spot. Before the season, Kentucky State allegedly signed an agreement to play Delta State for what was going to be Delta State Senior Day. So they were going to go on the road to Delta State to play Delta State. And that was what was reported. If you look at Delta State's schedule release, they have Kentucky State listed as their Senior Day. However, I believe a couple of days ago, it was formally announced that Kentucky State, the SIAC reached an agreement with Conference Carolinas for a pair of games at the end of the regular season as part of an agreement to help strengthen the playoff case for any two teams in a respective conference that had a record at or above 500. And it was announced that Kentucky State was going to play against Shorter, and Allen was going to play against, Lord have mercy, I keep forgetting who Allen is going to be playing in this game. Erskine, however you pronounce it. So, and Kentucky State and Allen will host both of those games. So now there's a controversy surrounding when Kentucky State informed Delta State about them not playing the game. According to Delta State, they're saying that they found out days in advance that Kentucky State was going to be able to play. Slider Sports guy, I saw him put out his perspective on it and said that they knew a month in advance that Kentucky State was going to be able to play in this game because of this agreement. So there's a lot of muddy waters going around and a lot of confusion surrounding whether or not Kentucky State ducked this game. You see all the Delta State alums and players talking about this is the definition of ducking the smoke, or they were scared to play us and all this and all this type stuff. But honestly, it's too murky for me to really comment on it and say who's in the wrong for this. There's not enough information really out there. I would love to speak with Felton Huggins, who congratulations to him. He was named the SIAC Player of the Year, Coach of the Year. Excuse me. You're not a player no more, Coach. But I would love to get both coaches' perspective on it because there's always each individual party's perspective, and then there's the truth. So I want to get to the bottom of what the situation is and how that all played out, because it's confusing, to be quite honest. But all I will say is that Kentucky State cannot afford to lose to Shorter this weekend. A 2-8 Shorter this team that is coming into your house with a chance for you to really cement your place in the Division II playoffs. The top 8 teams are going to the playoffs. I thought it was 6. I thought it was 7 teams in the first seed gets the first round bye. I don't remember 8 teams going through. I'm not calling you a liar, Lawrence, but the last I remember it was the top 7 with the first seed getting the first round bye, unless they change the format with um unless they change the format of it being the top 8 teams with the first seed not getting the first round bye. But I remember it being, from what I remembered in the years past, it was the top 7 teams in each region with the first seed getting the first round bye. We'll see, but 4 automatic qualifiers, 4 at large. Okay. Okay. Okay, cool. So, it started this season. Cool. Okay. That's why I was confused, because I was like, in years past, it would be the top 7 teams with the first seed getting the first round bye. So, okay. So, yeah, and there absolutely is a scenario where Kentucky State or Delta State don't get in at all. So, but yeah, Kentucky State cannot afford, whether Kentucky State gets in the Division II playoffs or not, they cannot afford to lose this game to Short. They cannot afford to lose this game. Amid allegations of them ducking, they can't. There's no way. You are going to be the running joke of you had a chance to play a team that is regionally ranked in your final game of the season and really strengthen your case for a Division II playoff berth. But instead, you had to. Now, to be quite honest, is it really their fault that they had to take this game against Shorter? Because it's an agreement between the two conferences. So I don't really know if we can really put the blame on Kentucky State. But from Delta State's perspective, they don't care. All they know is we were signed and contracted to play each other. We had an agreement to play each other. And for whatever reason, now it's not happening. And now we have to wait in the wings and see if we're going to be able to get in as an at-large bid when that game, should they have won it, would have really strengthened their case to get in. So if Delta State wins the GSC automatic qualifier, this wouldn't be it. It wouldn't. It won't. It won't be. And that's going to be even worse for Kentucky State if Delta State wins the GSC and they end up losing the Shorter. That's what's going to make it so much. That's why I said you cannot lose the Shorter. Kentucky State has had a great season, 8-2. I believe this would be their first Division II playoff appearance if they were to be selected as an at-large bid. So that would be huge for them. So if they were to win this game against Shorter and found a way to get that at-large bid. But as you said, there's the other conferences in that region that have to decide their conference champions and who's going to be the automatic qualifiers for those conferences. And then you got to sort out the strength of schedule, because if you look at Kentucky State's schedule, there's no winning teams. There's no wins against winning teams. The only other team they played with a winning record was Albany State, and they lost. The Grambling State game doesn't get taken into account. So the only other game against an opponent that would count towards their strength of schedule, they lost. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kentucky State. But as far as them being accused of quote unquote ducking the smoke, that's going to really intensify if they lose this game against Shorter. I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like they know what's at stake, and they are going to come out and they're going to play hard and they're going to play well like they have all season. And they are going to, at this point, they're going to have to wait and see if they get into the Division II playoffs. If they were to win this game. But I definitely think it's just an unfortunate situation I feel like that would have been a very entertaining game. Kentucky State and Delta State, with this being the best Kentucky State team we've seen in quite a long time against a legitimate Delta State team that yearly is a problem for whoever they face. We've seen Delta State come in against HBCUs and get some wins. They just barely got by Fort Valley State early this season. So Delta State has been a thorn in HBCU side for a while, just like Valdosta State has. So that would have been a very good game. It's just unfortunate that it didn't go down. But as far as the duck and the smoke allegations, I don't think it's on Kentucky State. From what I know, this is not on. It should not be on Kentucky State. It's not their fault that a deal between the SIAC and Conference Carolinas came through and changed things around. I don't think you could put the blame at their feet. But it's not going to matter if Kentucky State loses. It is going to matter if Kentucky State loses this game shorter. It's gonna make it matters worse if they lose. But I don't see that happening. But that's going to do it for this edition of the Better Than Less Than podcast. Again, you can watch the two conference championship games. Albany State and Benedict will be on ESPN Plus at 1 p.m. Eastern. And the CIAA championship game between Virginia Union and Johnson C. Smith will be on HBCU Go at 3 p.m. Eastern. That is HBCU Go, not the Grio. I know a lot of Division II games, they're on the Grio and they're reported as HBCU Go. This one is actually on HBCU Go. They bumped the SWAC down to the Grio. They said, the big dogs at the CIAA championship game gotta be on HBCU Go. But but again, Albany State and Benedict for the SIAC championship will be at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus, and Virginia Union and Johnson C. Smith in the CIAA championship game will be at 3 p.m. Eastern on HBCU Go. Thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. If you can, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the HBCU Sports YouTube channel. Follow us on all of our social platforms. Search out HBCU Sports, and you will find us there. And you can go to hbcusports.com for all the latest news of HBCU Sports. If you feel led to contribute to the operation, go to HBCU Sports/donate. Any contribution you have will be appreciated. Anything from $1 to $1 million. If you want to be the Mackenzie Scott for the HBCU Sports operation, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you guys. Until next time, I'm Jared Hoffman. See you guys.